Victoria Chen adjusted her black server's uniform for the third time, smoothing down the crisp white apron as she surveyed the glittering ballroom of the Grand Marina Hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing lights across the marble floors, where Miami's elite mingled in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. The annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala was the social event of the season. She was grateful for the extra income, even if it meant spending her Saturday night serving champagne to people who spent more on jewelry than she made in a year. At 26, Victoria was no stranger to working multiple jobs. By day, she pursued her master's degree in social work at Miami University, and by night, she waitressed at events like this to pay for tuition and help support her aging grandmother. Her long black hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Her wire-rimmed glasses reflected the ballroom's opulent lighting as she navigated through the crowd with practiced efficiency. On the opposite side of the room, Sebastian Hayes stood near, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay, a glass of untouched champagne in his hand. At 34, he had built Hayes Technologies from a college startup into a global empire, but success had come at the cost of genuine human connection. His perfectly tailored midnight blue tuxedo couldn't hide the weariness in his dark eyes, or the way he seemed to withdraw from the animated conversations around him. Sebastian had attended dozens of these galas, written countless checks, and shaken hands with the same circle of wealthy philanthropists year after year. Tonight felt no different until his business partner, Richard, approached with his usual enthusiasm. "Sebastian, you need to meet the Morrison family. Their daughter just returned from studying art in Paris, and I think you two would have a lot in common," Richard said, gesturing toward a group near the auction display. Sebastian replied, his voice polite but firm. Richard laughed. "Come on, when was the last time you dated someone who wasn't after your money? Give it a chance." Before Sebastian could respond, a commotion erupted nearby. Victoria had been carrying a tray of champagne glasses when a guest's elaborate gesture sent her stumbling backward. Time seemed to slow as she fought to regain her balance, but the inevitable crash came as glasses shattered against the marble floor, champagne splashing across her uniform and pooling at her feet. The surrounding conversation stopped as heads turned toward the disturbance. Victoria's cheeks burned with embarrassment as she knelt to gather the broken glass, acutely aware of the stares and whispered comments from the elegant guests. "How clumsy," someone murmured. "They should hire more experienced staff for events like this," another voice added dismissively. Sebastian watched the scene unfold, noting how the woman kept her head down, her hands shaking slightly as she worked to clean up the mess. Without thinking, he approached and knelt beside her, his expensive tuxedo be damned. "Here, let me help," he said quietly, reaching for some of the larger glass pieces. Victoria looked up in surprise, meeting his eyes for the first time. "Oh no, sir, you don't need to do that. I can handle it." "You'll ruin your tuxedo." "It's just a suit," Sebastian said with a gentle smile. "Are you hurt?" "Some of those pieces looked sharp." "Fine, thank you," Victoria replied, touched by his kindness, but still mortified by the attention they were drawing. A hotel staff member appeared with a dustpan and towels, and together they quickly cleared the area. As they stood, Sebastian noticed a small cut on Victoria's palm where she had gripped a glass shard too tightly. "You are hurt," he said, concern evident in his voice. "It's nothing, really," Victoria protested. But Sebastian was already guiding her away from the crowd, toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. "There's a first aid kit at the concierge desk," he said. "Let's get that cleaned up properly." Victoria found herself following the stranger, struck by his genuine concern. Most of the guests barely acknowledged the serving staff as human beings. Yet here was someone in an obviously expensive tuxedo, treating her with more kindness than she had experienced all evening, at the concierge desk. Sebastian retrieved the first aid kit and carefully cleaned Victoria's small wound, his touch gentle and precise. "I'm Sebastian, by the way," he said as he applied a small bandage. "Victoria," she replied, studying his face. There was something familiar about him, though. She couldn't place where she might have seen him before. "Thank you for helping me. You didn't have to do that." "Are you feeling better now?" Victoria nodded, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "I should get back to work. They'll be wondering where I am." "Actually," Sebastian said, an idea forming, Would you like to take a break? There's a quieter terrace upstairs where we could get some fresh air. You've had quite a shock. Victoria hesitated. Fraternizing with guests was strictly against catering company policy. But something about Sebastian's sincere demeanor made her. The terrace overlooked the Miami skyline, city lights twinkling like earthbound stars. A gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the hotel's gardens, and for the first time, all evening, Victoria felt herself relax. "This is beautiful," she said, leaning against the railing. "It is," Sebastian agreed, though his eyes were on her rather than the view. "Do you work many events like this?" Victoria laughed softly, enough to know that most people don't notice. "When the help disappears for a few minutes? What about you? Do you attend these galas often?" "More than I'd like," Sebastian admitted. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Writing checks and making small talk about nothing meaningful." "That sounds lonely," Victoria observed, surprised by his honesty. Sebastian studied her face in the soft light. "It is, what do you do when you're not serving champagne to overprivileged socialites?" "I'm working on my master's degree in social work. I want to help kids who have grown up in the system like I did," Victoria said, then immediately wondered why she had shared something so personal with a stranger. "Foster care," Sebastian asked gently. Victoria nodded. "From age 12 until 18? My grandmother took me in after that, but those were formative years. I learned early that the world doesn't owe you anything, but that doesn't mean you can't make a difference for others." Sebastian felt something shift inside him as he listened to her speak. Here was someone who had faced real challenges, yet, instead of becoming bitter, she had chosen to dedicate her life to helping others. It was a perspective he rarely encountered in his world of board meetings and profit margins. "That's remarkable," he said sincerely. "You're remarkable." Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You don't even know me." I know enough," Sebastian replied. "I know you care more about helping others than impressing people. I know you have more grace and dignity in your little finger than most of the people in that ballroom combined." Their conversation was interrupted by Victoria's phone buzzing with a text from her supervisor, wondering about her whereabouts. Reality crashed back as she realized how long they had been talking. "I have to go," she said reluctantly. "Thank you for this, for everything." As she turned to leave, Sebastian felt a desperate urge not to let this moment end. "Victoria, wait. Could I see you again? Maybe for coffee sometime?" Victoria paused at the terrace door, torn between the impossibility of their different worlds and the genuine connection she felt. "I don't think that's a good idea. We're from very different places." "Maybe that's exactly why it's a good idea," Sebastian said softly. Victoria looked back at him one more time, memorizing his face in the moonlight, before disappearing back into the glittering world where she served and he belonged. But as she returned to work, clearing tables and refilling glasses, she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed in those few minutes on the terrace. Sebastian remained on the balcony long after she left, staring out at the city lights and thinking about a young woman who had challenged everything he thought he knew about connection, purpose, and what really mattered in life. 3 days had passed since the charity gala, and Sebastian found himself unable to concentrate on anything. During board meetings, his mind wandered to Victoria's laugh. While reviewing quarterly reports, he remembered the way her eyes lit up when she talked about helping children. He had never experienced anything like this, consuming thoughts about someone he barely knew. On Wednesday evening, Sebastian made a decision that surprised even him. Instead of heading home to his penthouse, he drove to the university district, hoping to find the coffee shop where Victoria might study. After visiting 3 different cafes, he spotted her through the window of a small place called Millionaire, hunched over textbooks with a laptop open beside her. Taking a deep breath, Sebastian entered the cozy cafe. Victoria looked up when a shadow fell across her table, her eyes widening in recognition and confusion. "Sebastian, how did you find me here?" she asked, quickly closing her laptop as if protecting her private world from his intrusion. "I may have visited every coffee shop near the university," he admitted with a sheepish smile. "Can I sit down?" Victoria glanced around the humble cafe, noting how out of place he looked in his expensive business suit among the students in worn jeans and faded t-shirts. "This isn't exactly your scene," Maybe that's why I like it, Sebastian said, settling into the mismatched chair across from her. What are you studying? Despite her reservations, Victoria found herself explaining her thesis on trauma-informed care for foster children. Sebastian listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that showed he was genuinely interested in her work. Not just making polite conversation. You really care about this? He observed after she finished describing her research. These kids deserve advocates who understand what they've been through, Victoria said passionately. Too many people in the system treat them like problems, to be solved instead of human beings with complex needs. Sebastian felt humbled by her dedication. I want to understand your world better. Would you show me? Victoria studied his face, searching for signs of condescension or charity, but found only sincere curiosity. Why would someone like you want to see how the other half lives? 'Cause someone like you makes me want to be better than I am, Sebastian replied quietly. The following Saturday, Victoria agreed to meet Sebastian at the community center, where she volunteered. She had spent the week second-guessing her decision. But when she saw him arrive in jeans and a simple sweater instead of his usual expensive attire, something in her chest loosened. This is where I spend most of my free time, Victoria said, leading him through the building. They passed a room where teenagers were working on art projects, another where elderly residents played chess, and a kitchen where volunteers prepared meals for homeless families. How long have you been coming here? Sebastian asked, watching Victoria greet everyone by name. Since I was 19, I started as someone who needed help, and gradually became someone who could give it, she explained, stopping to help a young boy with his homework. Sebastian observed how naturally Victoria connected with people from all walks of life. She possessed an authenticity he had never encountered in his corporate world, where every interaction felt calculated and strategic. Victoria, who's your friend? Asked Maria, an elderly woman who ran the after-school program. This is Sebastian. He's interested in learning about our programs, Victoria replied, shooting him a warning look that said, please don't mention your wealth. Sebastian spent the afternoon reading to children, helping serve dinner to families and listening to stories from community members. By evening, he felt more fulfilled than he had after closing multi-million-dollar deals. As they walked to the parking lot, Victoria turned to him. Well, was it what you expected? It was better, Sebastian said honestly. Little materially, but they seem happier than most people I know. Money doesn't solve everything, Victoria said. Community, purpose, genuine relationships. Those things matter more than bank account balances. Over the following weeks, Sebastian and Victoria began meeting regularly. She showed him food trucks he never knew existed, took him to free concerts in the park, and taught him to appreciate simple pleasures he had forgotten in his pursuit of success. In return, Sebastian shared stories about the loneliness of wealth, the pressure of family expectations, and his growing realization that he had built a successful business but an empty life. One evening, he sat on Victoria's modest apartment balcony, sharing takeout Chinese food and watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I have something to confess, Sebastian said, setting down his chopsticks. I've been researching foster care reform, and I want to start a foundation. It's not just writing checks, but really getting involved in creating systemic change. Victoria turned to study his face. Why? Because you've shown me what real impact looks like. Because those kids deserve better. And because I want to do something that matters, Sebastian said. I want to be worthy of your respect. Sebastian, Victoria said softly, you don't need to change the world to earn my respect. You just need to be yourself. What if myself isn't good enough? He asked, vulnerability clear in his voice. Victoria reached for his hand. Then you haven't been paying attention. The man who helped me clean up broken glass, who listens to children read, who asks thoughtful questions about trauma-informed care, that man is more than good enough. Their first kiss happened naturally, sitting on that small balcony as the city lights began to twinkle below them. It was tender and sweet, full of possibility and hope. But as their relationship deepened, the outside world began to take notice. Paparazzi photos appeared online showing Sebastian at the community center, and local newspapers began speculating about the tech billionaire's mysterious new girlfriend. Victoria found herself thrust into an uncomfortable spotlight she never wanted. People are talking, she said one evening, after a particularly intrusive photographer had followed them to dinner. Let them talk, Sebastian replied. But Victoria could see the strain in his eyes. The pressure intensified when Sebastian's mother, Eleanor Hayes, requested a meeting. Victoria agreed, despite her apprehension, knowing this conversation would determine their future. They met at an elegant restaurant where Eleanor assessed. Victoria, with the calculating gaze of someone accustomed to evaluating threats to her family's empire. You seem like a lovely girl, Eleanor began. But surely you understand that Sebastian needs a partner who can navigate his social and business obligations. Someone from his world. I understand that you want what's best for your son, Victoria replied calmly. But maybe what's best for him isn't what you've planned. Eleanor's smile was cold. My dear, you have no idea what kind of pressure comes with our lifestyle. Scrutiny, the expectations, the responsibilities. It would destroy someone like you. Victoria felt the sting of the words but kept her composure. With respect, Mrs. Hayes, you don't know anything about what I can handle. At night, Victoria called Sebastian, her voice heavy with exhaustion. I think your mother might be right. Sebastian arrived at Victoria's apartment within minutes of her call, finding her sitting on her couch with tears in her eyes and a laptop open to news articles about their relationship. Look at this, Victoria said, pointing to the screen. Tech Billionaire's charity case girlfriend, Sebastian Hayes, slumming with the help. Do you see what they're saying about me? About us? Sebastian sat beside her, anger flashing in his eyes. As he read the cruel headlines, these people don't know you. They don't know us. But they know enough, Victoria said, closing the laptop. They know I don't belong in your world, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to. The photographers, the judgment, your mother's disapproval, this isn't what I signed up for. So what are you saying? Sebastian asked, though he dreaded the answer. Victoria took a shaky breath. I think we should end this before it gets worse. Before we both get hurt? Sebastian felt his world tilting. Victoria? No. We can figure this out together. How? She asked, standing and pacing to the window. You have responsibilities, a company, a family legacy. I have my work, my community, my grandmother who needs me. We're from different universes, and trying to force them together is just causing pain. I don't care about any of that, Sebastian said desperately. I care about you. I love you. The words hung in the air between them, the first time either had spoken them aloud. Victoria turned from the window, tears streaming down her face. Love you too, she whispered. That's why this is so hard. Sebastian stood and crossed to her, taking her hands in his. Then don't give up on us, please. But Victoria pulled away. I need time to think. Alone. The next 2 weeks were agony for both of them. Sebastian threw himself into work but found no satisfaction in million-dollar deals. Victoria volunteered extra hours at the community center, but even helping others couldn't fill the emptiness Sebastian's absence had created. Meanwhile, Sebastian made a decision that would change everything. He called a press conference, standing before a room full of reporters and cameras, with a confidence born of absolute certainty. I'm here today to address recent speculation about my personal life, Sebastian began. I am in love with Victoria Chen. Yes, she comes from a different background than mine. And yes, she is the most remarkable woman I have ever met. He paused, looking directly into the main camera. Victoria Chen has dedicated her life to helping children who have been forgotten by society. She volunteers countless hours at community centers. She's pursuing a master's degree to become a better advocate for foster children. And she cares more about making a difference than making money. If that makes her unsuitable in some people's eyes, then those people have their priorities completely wrong. Sebastian's voice grew stronger. I'm also announcing the establishment of the Victoria Chen Foundation for Foster Care Reform with an initial endowment of $50 million. But more importantly, I'm announcing that I would rather live in Victoria's world of genuine compassion and purpose than in a world that judges people by their bank accounts. Victoria watched the press conference from the community center, surrounded by her friends and colleagues. Maria squeezed her hand as Sebastian continued speaking. Victoria, if you're watching this, I want you to know that I don't need you to fit into my world. I want to build a new world with you, one where love matters more than money, where kindness is valued above status, and where we can make a real difference together." Tears streamed down Victoria's face as Sebastian concluded. "I love you, Victoria Chen, and I'm willing to fight for us if you are." The room erupted in cheers and encouragement. "Go to him," Maria urged. "That man loves you with his whole heart." Victoria didn't hesitate. She grabbed her keys and drove straight to Sebastian's office building, taking the elevator to the executive floor she had never visited. His assistant tried to stop her, but Sebastian appeared in his office doorway, hope and fear warring in his expression. "I saw the press conference," Victoria said, breathless from her rush to reach him. "And?" Sebastian asked, not daring to move closer. "And I realized something," Victoria said, stepping into his office. "I've been so afraid of not being good enough for your world that I forgot you might want to be part of mine instead." Sebastian crossed the room in 3 strides, taking her in his arms. "I don't want my world without you in it. I want our world." Their kiss was desperate and joyful, full of relief and renewed hope. When they finally broke apart, Victoria looked up at him with shining eyes. "A foundation in my name?" she asked with a teasing smile. "Too much," Sebastian asked nervously. "Completely over the top," Victoria agreed. "I love it. I love you." 6 months later, Victoria stood in a simple but elegant wedding dress in the community center where they had first worked together. The venue wasn't traditional for a billionaire's wedding, but it was perfect for them. The guest list included tech executives and foster children, society matrons, and community volunteers, creating a celebration that truly represented their blended worlds. Sebastian's mother had eventually come around, especially after seeing how happy her son had become and how much good the foundation was accomplishing. Victoria's grandmother beamed from the front row, as having thoroughly charmed Sebastian during their weekly dinner visits. As they exchanged vows they had written themselves, Sebastian promised to always remember that love was more valuable than any fortune, while Victoria promised to build something beautiful together, one day at a time. Their first dance was to the same song that had played during their conversation on the hotel terrace. And as they swayed together, Victoria whispered, "So what happens now?" Sebastian smiled down at his wife, his heart full of possibilities. "Now we change the world, one foster child at a time, one community project at a time, one act of love at a time." "Together," Victoria asked. "Always together," Sebastian confirmed. Spinning her around as their friends and family cheered, they had proven that love could indeed conquer all, that 2 people from different worlds could create something beautiful. When they chose each other above everything else, and as they began their new life together, both Sebastian and Victoria knew that their greatest adventure was just beginning. The foundation thrived, creating real change in the foster care system. Sebastian discovered that using his wealth and influence to help others brought him more satisfaction than any business deal ever had. Victoria completed her master's degree and became the foundation's director of programs, finally able to help children on the scale she had always dreamed of. Years later, when people asked them about their unlikely love story, they would smile and say that sometimes the most beautiful things happen when you're brave enough to let down your walls and let someone see who you really are. Their love hadn't just changed their lives. It had changed the lives of countless children who now had advocates who truly understood their struggles and their potential. In the end, they proved that love isn't about finding someone from your world. It's about finding someone willing to build a new world with you. One filled with purpose, compassion, and endless possibilities.